somehow saved for this book, and there wasn't. It was, something that should never again see the light of day. Is not going to if I have anything to do. So that was a surprise, sure. But what was really surprising was to find that over all these years, Bob Dylan began as and continues as someone you can't not have an opinion about. He is someone people will be arguing about. And that, as you were saying, people are arguing about music and divisions that in some ways are enormously productive and rewarding. He has always been a figure that one man's meat is another man's poison, and nothing could be more true of any given song that he sings or the way that he sings any given song on any given night.
Perhaps there's some questions for Greil or Matt.
I'd like to share something with you. One night I was at the Bottom Line and Fred King was playing. Bob Dylan came up on stage with a young lady named Scarlett Rivera, who's a violinist. I was wondering, did they ever do anything together?
Beyond that night?
No, I mean, he later dated her. She was a neighbor of mine, that's why I know that. Scarlett Rivera played...
Yeah.
Excuse me?
She plays on the album Desire. She is all over his single Hurricane. She's the driving force of that single.
May I also say something? There was a period when Dylan was playing at the Garden, because I remember at that time I was scouting. It was like 4 or 5 nights, 3 or 4 nights or something in the 70s. It seemed like his fans were angry at him because I believe that was during the time he had that spiritual Christian what is it? Everybody's got to serve something. He went electric. That's what it was. Am I correct?
In the late 70s, early 80s, he was performing as essentially an evangelical minister.
Did it turn off his audience?
It did happen, yeah.
So back to the Basement Tapes. What's so remarkable for me about that album is how just upon listening to the discs, to the album, without listening to any of the bootlegs, it's very raw and it seems really really fluid, like it kind of just came out of these guys like from some kind of divine moment. But then you listen to like this constant stream of bootlegs that's being released like every year, and they do takes on takes on takes of all these songs. And I'm wondering if you think there's anything about the quite remarkable experience of recording the Basement Tapes that was conducive to this like ostensible rawness. That wasn't actually rawness, it was very rehearsed.
I don't think it was rehearsed. I think when they hit upon something that seemed good, it was worth making it really good. And making it better, getting it right. You've got a bunch of musicians. They can tell when something could be better. They can tell when you're almost there, but you're not there. And, I still think when you say it has that raw feeling, it does. I mean, one thing Robbie Robertson said to me once was, he said, we would sit around and play these songs, and Bob would say, people might hear this stuff someday. We should destroy it. And Robbie said it was like the Watergate tapes. He said it was a conspiracy. And he said a conspiracy of us amusing ourselves. Nobody was ever supposed to hear this stuff. Now, that may be an exaggeration. It may not be. But I think that's where the freedom in that music comes from. That's where the nonsense in so much of the lyrics, the joy and the sense of slyness that you can hear in a song like $1 Million Bash, the inside joke feeling of it all, that's where that comes from. And I remember when I first heard about this, a guy comes in from London. He was hanging around the Rolling Stones, and they'd been sent a copy of, I forget how many it was, 13, 14 songs that they decided to send out to people to see if anybody wanted to record them. And he had made a copy of this, what was called then the acetate, of these 14 original songs. And he said, would you like to hear this? And I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, sure. And he said, well, you can meet me at the corner of Walnut and Rose, 4 o'clock. Come along. It was like a dope deal, except no money changed hands. And when we met on the corner, he handed me a little cassette, and he said, give me a call sometime. Let me know what you think. I mean, it was just so sweet. So that sense of conspiracy, that sense of you're not supposed to be hearing this, carried over into the music, into the way it first crept into the world. I don't think it ever was supposed to be heard. I really don't.
When you're writing a review of an album or something, typically, how many times do you listen to the album before you have a clear idea of whether you like it, whether you don't like it, what you're going to write about?
Well, if it's something I don't like, then something really strikes me right away. Something, just it's so egregious, something so irritating or stupid. I'll definitely play that several more times to make sure I'm not, being completely, fooled by myself. But when I write about something, it catches my ear. It seems interesting. It's just something that's on. I'm not studying it. I'm not listening to the words of anything. And it'll just sound interesting. And I'll play that all day long. I'll play it 15, 16, 20 times. I might play it for a week. On the other hand, I might hear something on the radio once and just be completely swept away. And recently I heard a song called Song Away by a band called Hockey. Now, there's a romantic name for it. And it's just one of the most deliriously irresistible things I'd ever heard. I turned on the radio. I caught it in the middle of the song. By the time it was over, I knew that song cold. I wanted to hear it again, but I didn't even need to hear it again. And a few days later, I caught half a note. I said, oh, that's it. That's got to be that song. By that time, I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know who it was by. But I didn't need to hear it again to know how great it was. Yeah.
Do you know who Positively Forestry was written about? And also, what was your take on the evangelical minister? Was it real, or was you just looking for a dual demographic?
The question was, do I know who Positively Forestry was written about, and what do I think of his period as evangelical? Was that for real, or
a dual demographic?
A way of expanding his audience? I can tell you that people in New York think Positively 4th Street is about 4th Street in New York, and that people in Minneapolis think Positively 4th Street is about 4th Street in Minneapolis. So you can, that's all I know.
That's a dual demographic if I've heard.
And let me tell you, if becoming an evangelical minister and singing his own gospel songs and telling his audience that they're going to go to hell unless they accept Jesus into their hearts and his mastery over their lives, if that's a strategy to expand their audience, it's very creative.
The songs are great. Some of them are really. You comment on A.J. Weber?
Well, actually, why don't we take 2 more questions? So, of course, 1 and 2, please. Yeah.
So Matt started talking about how music is divisive amongst friends. Sometimes we disagree a lot, and I agree with that. And Greil ended with Bob Dylan being a divisive figure in music. The band, I've never heard a bad word about, at least not their music. And, I've talked to lots of people about music. I'm just wondering if that's your experience as well, and if so, why? Why is there no criticism?
I want to say something quickly. That's not my experience. People hated the band. They thought they made a half a good record, and then the critical establishment, whatever that meant. I've had someone say, an older brother of a friend said this to me in 1983, before he put on his AC/DC record, and so it was a lot of envy of the band and their fans because they were so loved. So I encountered an anti-band backlash.
A little bit. I mean, I was sort of saying that the music doesn't get criticized. It's like the criticism was at a level of their popularity, not the music so much. But
I think their music froze up after their second album. They made music from Big Pink. They made the band the next year in 1969. And after that, what made that group so special, the way that there were 3-4 different voices flying through the songs, people picking up words from each other like Huey, Dewey, and Louie, the way that you couldn't tell and didn't care who was playing what, the way there seemed to be secret instruments in the songs, there were horn sections that maybe you didn't even ever notice, the way that everything was constantly in motion, and that there was never a single author, a single face, a single voice in anything. That all disappeared. And there were plenty of people who always found them utterly tiresome. I remember a number of years ago, Sean Valence and I were trying to put together a book on the American ballad, and we invited all sorts of different people to contribute. And we were trying to give people an idea of what is an American ballad. We said, Stagger Lee, or Blackjack Davy, or The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. And one of the people we wrote to and invited him to contribute was R. Crumb. And he wrote back, and he said, I couldn't even consider being part of a project that would include The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. He said, I have never in my life heard of anything more pretentious and pompous. He said, not even Bruce Springsteen has ever been this pretentious. And he said, so count me out. So yeah.
That was a great song.
I was just going to say that one of the things that I remember about talking about Chronicles was the part that Matthew brought up about Dylan talking about writing these latter-day albums using some sort of math, which struck me as just some bullshit that he was making up about himself again. And I wanted to get Greil's take on that.
I couldn't hear your question.
Is that the idea that he set forth in Chronicles, a lot of his songs over the past 15 years have been written using some sort of like math structure, and he was so vague about it that I thought he was just making it up in the book, and I was wondering your take on that.
Well, every musician I've ever spoken to who has read that passage has said what Matt said, is that I have no idea what he's talking about. I can't begin to follow the formula, the alchemy, but he knows what he's talking about because something did change in his music. And I'm not a musician. And I remember reading that saying, God, I wish I was a musician so I could understand this. And then later finding out that no musician could.
I think he's serious. I mean, I think he's expressing it in a way that he understands and maybe isn't, it's just, I think maybe he's expressing it in an intentionally convoluted way. He doesn't care that it's a convoluted way of expressing it, but I think he's very serious about having this new method that he didn't need emotion to perform or write songs. That's one of the things that struck me very much.
It stuck with me too, to the point that I remember listening to some of the albums and trying to figure out where it was in the songs.
Our conversation is going to continue on Sunday with a wonderful group of presenters: D.A. Pennebaker, John Niven, Dana Spiota, John Wesley Harding, and more. And then Sunday night, a concert with a house band featuring Larry Campbell, John Medeski, Stephen Bernstein, and special guests, including just announced David Johansen, New York Dolls, and Buster Poindexter fame. So we have deep discounts for those who want to purchase tickets tonight for the symposium and concert together in the back with Kara. And I really wanted to thank the Strand for hosting us tonight. Greil will be signing books. Thank you, Matthew and Greil, for being here. Thank you.